This is Seawolves. Storm? Or not.
Fall break ends, but the fall season comes. How's everyone doing? I'm Ao Kwan. This broadcast is a co-production between the students at the School of Communication and Journalism and their colleagues at the School of Marine and Atmospheric Sciences. Many of us are preoccupied with what is happening in the Middle East. No matter how you look at it, it is horrifying. As Secretary of State Blinken said this week, how do you digest of these blood, death, and brutality? The situation is changing so often. Our foreign correspondent Kristen Kelly has the latest news.
More Israeli ground troops have moved closer to Gaza. Military officials say a Hamas commander was killed over the weekend by airstrikes. The U.S. Embassy says there are reports that a border crossing between Egypt and Gaza will open to allow in desperately needed humanitarian aid, but the situation is unpredictable.
Gaza is running out of water and electricity.
In a CBS 60 Minutes interview, President Biden said Israel has to go after Hamas.
Hamas is a bunch of cowards. They're hiding behind the civilians.
Today, Secretary of State Anthony Blinken is back in Israel after meeting with multiple leaders in the Middle East over the weekend. Flights carrying Americans returning from Israel landed in Florida, New York, and Chicago.
I got to the gate, I sat down, and I started crying.
But in a nearby Chicago suburb, a memorial is growing after authorities say a knife-wielding man attacked his tenants, injuring a Palestinian mother and killing her 6-year-old son. The sheriff's office says the child was stabbed 26 times.
How can anyone do that to a little boy? I can't.
In a statement, President Biden expressed condolences to the child's family, adding, quote, "This horrific act of hate has no place in America." But there's something else going on in America, and it's pretty ugly. You heard about the killing of that little boy that I reported on. But our fellow college students on a number of campuses are out protesting, and they are angry. At Columbia University last week, 2 very large groups of students confronted one another across a narrow strip of land. Pro-Palestinian students shouting about the cruel fate of their friends in Gaza, while pro-Israeli students screamed that the worst killing since the Holocaust had been visited on Israel. It was emotions that were violent that day, but the night before, an Israeli undergraduate student was beaten, and her assailant has now been charged with a hate crime and assault. There have been a couple incidents, but at Stony Brook, things are quiet as usual.
Thank you, Kristen. Regardless of the heat in the Middle East, I'm also concerned about the food and water supply in Gaza. Do you have any update about that?
Well, Ao, it appears that one bread store has opened in Gaza. Hundreds of people are lining up for that. As for the water situation, Egyptians are traveling to the Gazan border with containers full of water. And I have to say, I'm relieved that Palestine is experiencing a flash of decency rather than a burst of white phosphorus. I wonder if Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu has considered that a full-scale invasion of Gaza will only create more terrorist groups like Hamas. Apparently, we learned nothing from George W. Bush's illegal and lethal invasion of Iraq.
The shadow of the war has covered the sky in Palestine. Let's see what's happening in our skies. Costa got our one-day forecast. Costa?
Thanks, Ao. Today's a typical fall day here at Stony Brook with a high of 65 and a low of 47 later on tonight with a light north wind. So grab a hot beverage, bundle up, and enjoy this nice fall weather. Back to you in the studio.
Thanks, Costa. I really wish I could have a hot latte right now. Do you think there's a line at Starbucks? As we go to Mike Sanderson with Mike's Minute, I have a question for you. Which one is more important in Stony Brook, Starbucks or sports?
Well, that's a great question, Ao, but, in kindness to my friends at Stony Brook Athletics, I don't think I'm going to give an honest answer to that one. In regards to sports on campus, let's get the rough stuff out of the way. So for the second consecutive year, the football team has started the season 0-6. On Saturday, they took a 7-6 lead into halftime, but ultimately fell 26-7 to Fordham at home. Now, they're turning their attention to New Hampshire, one of the top 25 teams in the nation, who they will host this weekend for their homecoming. The women's volleyball team's 6-match winning streak came to a screeching halt this past weekend when Delaware swept them in a 2-match set. The women are now back under 500 and are exactly 500 in conference play. On a brighter note, the women's soccer team has won 2 in a row to stay alive in the postseason hunt. However, they do not control their own destiny. They only have 1 game left, while UNCW, who owns the tiebreaker over Stony Brook, has 2 games left. Stony Brook is going to need to take care of business this Thursday at Northeastern and get some outside help in order to make the CAA tournament. As for the men's soccer team, well, their Cinderella story has continued. After being picked to finish last in the coaches' preseason poll, they maintained the first place spot in the conference all year long. This past weekend, while they were on their bye, they officially punched their ticket to the CAA playoffs and maintained sole possession of first place. That's all I've got for this week. To find out the conditions of these games, let's go over to Taylor Fitzgerald for the 7-day forecast. Taylor?
Thanks, Mike. Before I get into this week's forecast, I would like to thank EarthCam for providing this live feed of Port Jefferson behind me. You could see the clear skies, and I'm excited to report that we're welcoming some consistent fall weather this week, with temperatures in the 60s throughout. As our one-day reporter Costa mentioned, we've got a high of 61 and a low of around 47 with partly sunny skies. Tomorrow's going to be mostly sunny with a high around 60 and a low near 46. Wednesday is going to be pretty similar with mostly sunny skies and a high of 63 with a low of 52. The pattern continues through Thursday with more sunny skies and a high of 67 and a low of 57. Friday will be mostly cloudy with a chance of showers after 8 a.m. Temperatures are going to be identical to Thursdays with a high of 67 and a low of 57. I know a lot of us are sick of the weekend rain, but you're just going to have to cope. The rain comes back over the weekend with showers on Saturday and a high near 64 and a low of around 51. No need to worry about the rain. We're going to have partly skies on Sunday with a high near 60 and a low around 46. That's all I've got for you this week. Back to AO at the desk.
Thanks, Taylor. I might be the minority. Your weather report is perfect for me. I love the rain. Of course, we'll be watching the heat in the Middle East, and I know the football team will play rain or shine on Saturday. I'm not going to the homecoming game, but I might take a walk on the Brooklyn Bridge in the rain. This is the news of this week. I'm your anchor, AO. Have a great week, Seawolves.
This is Seawolves. Storm or not.